Yeah, I think, and this just stems a little bit from my own experience, is don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And all of us on this call have found a lot of value in getting involved in FPA and other opportunities to help advance ourselves in our career. But it doesn't have to be FPA or it doesn't have to be something similar to that. I think it's just important to put yourself in a position outside of your internal work environment and get perspectives and guidance and bounce ideas from other individuals. They could be advisors, they could be.
Hey everyone, I'm Deshaun Peterson and welcome to The Blueprint, an FPA NexGen podcast. And on this week's episode, we'll be interviewing Blake Pinyan, who is a senior financial planner at Anchor Bay Capital. And also he's this year's FPA NexGen National Chair.
All right, Blake, I heard you went to Spain recently. So why don't you give us the best and worst and maybe the most delicious thing you ate over in Spain?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. It was an amazing trip. I'd say some of the highlights were the Plaza de España, that's just beautiful Spain terrace and a fountain that we got to see, very calm and peaceful. And time moves a lot slower there. A lot of people just take time to eat and drink and socialize. So just the pace of life was really inviting. And then also just the history and the culture within Spain. Some of the cathedrals that we saw were beautiful and some of the palaces and all that. It's really magnificent. I mean, comparing that to the US, we kind of date back our history a couple hundred years, but when you go to Europe, we're talking thousands of years. So it's really beautiful just to observe the differences in history between the two countries. And then as far as worst thing, I'd say there's definitely a lot of pickpocketers out there, so you have to be sharp as far as protecting your valuables and being cautious out for pickpocketers. I mean, we had one experience where someone actually like unzipped my bag and we had a sketchy occasion, but thank the Lord that nothing was stolen, but still you just got to keep an eye out. As far as the best food, we had some tapas in Spain, so that's what they're famous for, and some really good like pan con tomate and this manchego cheese with this raspberry jam dressing. It was just unbelievable and very like small plates, and you can just get a whole variety. So top-notch food for sure.
Absolutely. And some paella and a lot of walking, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Did you bring like a money belt with you to avoid the pickpocketers?
Yeah. So my fiance had one of those zipper belts, so we kept her wallet and phones in those, and then it was in front of us, so we didn't have anything in the pockets. Better to be safe than sorry.
I've never been to Europe, but I'm very excited. And thank you for letting me know that pickpocketers are a thing, because I would just went over there probably with everything in my backpack and came back with nothing. But Blake, thank you for joining us. Welcome to The Blueprint, a FPA NexGen podcast. I'm your host, Deshaun Peterson, and this is my co-host, Mike Zarelli, and everyone who's listening in all the podcast networks around the world. We'd like to give a warm welcome to Blake Pinyan, who is a senior financial planner at Anchor Bay Wealth Management. And Blake, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here and super excited for today's discussion.
No, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Just to kick things off right away, let's get into like the nitty gritty. I think me, you, and Mike all have a relationship because we're all in FPA, we're all in the same committee. But one thing I think we never actually spoken to you about, Blake, is your journey to becoming president of the NexGen National Committee. So could you just walk us through that story of how you got involved and how you ascended to this leadership role? Because I think it's a relatable story, because we see FPA everywhere, but to see someone actually go through the ranks is something that I think a lot of us want to hear, especially myself.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, personally, I've always had a passion to get involved in leadership and serve on various volunteer committees. But as it relates to NexGen, I got involved with my local chapter in Orange County a couple of years after I graduated and started off as a local leader. So I was assisting some of the other committee members with organizing events and planning socials and education events for our NexGen community members. And I felt like I was doing a great job there, but I really had an inkling to make an impact on a larger scale. And I had some ideas on things that I felt like the community needed. So I luckily knew of who's now the past president, Amy Agamata. We had a relationship from being close in the geographical area. So I reached out to her knowing that she was part of the national NexGen team and asked her for some more information on what national NexGen is, what are the types of roles available. And she pointed me to the application process, and I did some research, found the positions, and then I stumbled upon the co-chair position or president-elect position. And it was definitely a stretch to try to go from a local NexGen FPA leader to try to put myself in a president-elect seat, not having any experience on the national board. But I went ahead and went for it, and took a lot of time in the application process and tried to come in well prepared for the interview, just trying to cite, my motives for making the community better. And again, it goes back to making an impact on a larger scale. I have such an affinity for the NexGen members, not only because I'm in that age range and I get a feel for what these types of people are experiences as far as struggles, opportunities, threats within their career. We're all targeting the same objectives, but really I felt like I can help them as far as moving them in the right direction and helping them level up within their careers. So I'm very fortunate and blessed to have been nominated to the National NexGen Committee. And last year I was the co-chair, and this year, 2024, I'm privileged to serve as the national chair. And I have a great team alongside me on the executive board, and then also you guys just over on the National NexGen leadership team. So very excited about all the things that we've been able to accomplish this year in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. You took the go big or go home approach to joining NexGen. So I had a question. Obviously this is a big role with a lot of responsibility and work, but can you tell us about some of the wins and then maybe some of the hurdles you've had to go through as the president?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's starting off with the wins. It's very reassuring to see progress within the targets that you set for those that you are leading. I mean, for example, we came into the year having a LinkedIn page with just under 1,000 followers, and now we're over 1,600. So just measurable little wins is amazing to see. And some of the goals that I've had just for my executive team, such as the mentorship program and the development path. Last year, we formed an idea, an outline for what we thought this development path was going to look like. And now we can confidently say that that's on the website, and we're putting resources in the hands of our NexGen members to guide them on the next steps of their career. And with the mentorship program, I think we've made a lot of great progress in that as well, trying to pair up our NexGen members with seasoned mentors to help get them to that next step in their career. So seeing the progress that we've been able to make together as a community is certainly valuable and something that I consider a win. As far as some of the challenges, things may not move sometimes as fast as I want them to move. And I think I'm kind of, ambitious and a go person. So sometimes I'm impatient and how fast I want things to get done. But I, kind of tell myself in the back of my mind, hey, there's a lot of other people, a lot of other hands in the cookie jar, and we need to make sure we're looking at every angle and getting perspective from everyone else involved in this decision. And it's more than just me. So respecting that and appreciating that things do take time, and that's okay. That's something that I've learned throughout my leadership journey.
Okay. You said something in that explanation, and I think it's really important that we highlight it. You said one of the initiatives that went from an idea and then is being executed this year is the career paths. And I think that what we're trying to accomplish, one of the objectives we're trying to accomplish with the podcast is shedding light on the up and coming financial services professionals and career changers alike. Could you explain a little bit what the career path is and why you think it's so important to, make it a initiative, if that makes sense?
Yeah, of course. So when we were surveying our NexGen members last year in 2023, a reoccurring theme was the lack of knowledge as far as career paths available within the financial services space. It's super wide in terms of what type of company you can work for, and also the similarities and differences between, say, a RIA and a wirehouse and a large custodian house. So there's a lot of different nuances, and it's pretty muddy. So after reading through that feedback, we felt like we need to put in some work to help better educate and guide our members on what different career paths are available within the financial services industry, so that these individuals come well informed and they can pursue the path that best resonates with them. So we've been working with some organizations like the CFP board and some industry professionals and academics on just trying to come up with a guide that better speaks to all the career paths available, one, and then two, how could it look in terms of progression in a career path? So what does it look like for those NexGen members 5, 10, 15 years down the road? And that's something that I was fortunate enough to have a little exposure to while in college, understanding the similarities and differences between companies, but certainly not every advisor does. Depending on which college you go to, we'll have different companies recruiting as far as whether you're a financial services major. So it's definitely important to get an understanding and perspective from other employers in the industry, not just those that show up as at your college career fair.
Yeah, totally agree with that mission. There's definitely a lack of knowledge of like wirehouse versus broker dealer, RIA, hybrid, especially coming out of college when you're just sending your resume out to anybody that has a post, trying to secure that first job. When it comes to your journey, how did you navigate breaking into the industry and figuring out where do you want to take this career?
Yeah, good question. Thanks for asking that. So as I hinted at earlier, I've kind of always had a passion to get involved. So I went to San Diego State University and started off as actually a general business major, and started getting involved in some of the clubs on campus. First joined like an entrepreneur society, and then found the finance and investment society. And an interest in finance compelled me to switch my major from general business to corporate finance. But then I learned shortly after that corporate finance was not really a good fit for me as far as the tasks and requirements of that. And someone tapped me on the shoulder and talked to me about this personal finance idea and the Financial Planning Association. So there was luckily a student chapter of FPA at my university. So I attended the club meeting on campus, and then soon took on a leadership role within that student club on campus. And being within that leadership role, it exposed me to all the different career path opportunities available, the differences between those large companies and the small companies and the middle tier companies. And part of my role within that leadership position was actually reaching out to those employers, which helped me build my network, because I was asking them to essentially speak at some of our club meetings. So through that experience, I was able to uncover some internships, and then participated in externships as well to help strengthen the resume. And then luckily found a RIA that had a part-time job opportunity while I was in school. So started working with them and transitioned to full-time once I graduated school. But then I had to move for some personal reasons. So then I moved to a larger firm, but that didn't turn out to be the best fit for my future career path. So then I transitioned to my current company where I am today, Anchor Bay Capital, and I've been there for coming up on 4 years now. But it kind of stems related to, getting involved back in college.
Thank you for sharing that, because that was one of my questions I had. It's like your journey, and you explained that greatly. And you said you did an internship and an externship. Could you explain the difference?
Yeah, good question. So an internship is what you think of where you generally get hired on by the company and you're tasked with some responsibilities. Might be as simple as scanning documents or filing papers away, or maybe taking client meeting notes or working on special projects, but you're actually kind of assigned with the company for an extended period of time, generally a summer, while you're in college. An externship, on the other hand, is a shorter engagement, and Hannah Moore does a really great job of coordinating a externship program she's been doing for a few years now. But at the time I was in college, it was about 9 hours that you'd split up over a course of 4 to 5 months, and you would go into a financial planning office and learn what a day in the life is at that job. So you would basically sit in with the advisor and shadow them and learn what they actually do. So it was a great opportunity to get hands-on experience and see, hey, is this really a path that I want to go down? This is what they do day to day. Could I see myself performing this type of job for years to come? So an externship was very helpful and maybe an easier opportunity to get rather than an internship, which may be more competitive.
Yeah, cool. I did the Hannah Moore externship the year of COVID as well. That was a great experience, especially because I've only worked for one firm. So I only know the way that we do financial planning, our procedures. So seeing just the wide array of how others do financial planning was pretty sweet. So as you mentioned that it took you a couple of jobs to find the right firm, and now you've been there for 4 years and you've started climbing up those rungs of the ladder. What has helped you climb those rungs? How have you progressed in your career?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So fortunately, I was able to sit in client meetings right from the get-go. So a lot of praise to my supervisor for allowing me to participate in meetings with him and learn from his wisdom and his seasonality on how to guide clients and how to serve clients. So repetition to me is a big thing, and I'm really fortunate I was able to sit in a lot of client meetings early on. But I feel like how I was able to evolve was sitting in as many client meetings as possible, and then experimenting too, taking risks and putting myself out there to speak in meetings, and then start leading meetings on my own. So it started off where I would essentially be the note taker and just listen in and then capture all the notes after the meeting and maybe put in the information in the planning software. And from there, I leveled up to starting to actually present certain parts of the meeting, albeit maybe like a strategy or a certain topic that I felt comfortable on. And then from there, I built more trust within my supervisor to take on a larger role within those meetings, where I eventually started to be able to lead my own meetings. And I try to do that as early as I can and throw myself out there and make mistakes and fail while trying to lead my client meetings on my own terms, because I knew I was always going to get better. And that, I think that's just the magic formula, is being able to try to lead as many meetings as you can, knowing that they're not going to go well in the beginning and they may not even go well shortly after that. But the more reps you get, the better you're going to prepare yourself to be a great advisor in this industry. And then you'll start to learn on things like how to actively listen to the client and how to judge body language and knowing when to stop talking and let them do the talking, and keenly observing, what they're saying and how I'm saying it. So really having the experience with the meetings has been super important for me as far as building up my confidence to actually serve as a lead advisor. And then in addition to that, finding ways and opportunities to add value to the organization that I'm a part of. So I took on a role of kind of serving as the technology guru, adding different technologies to help streamline our operations within our firm. I also took on a role to add marketing efforts to our firm. So added like a newsletter and some other things where we could provide some additional touch points for our clients. So I think a combination of those different things, and being at a small firm, you definitely have to wear a lot of hats. And so I was happy to say yes to kind of all the opportunities presented to me, but also bring some new ideas to the table.
Attempts at bat is kind of like the phrase I say, because you're saying like the more times you sat in those meetings and you just got better, and you mentioned the qualitative is confidence, right? It might not be great in the beginning, but with time, it'll naturally progress. And I like to just piggyback on that. So of course you're getting the experience with the clients and the understudy, you're working with senior advisors and you're learning. But also, Blake, you're a CFP and a EA, an enrolled agent. Can you tell me, I guess in a sense, why did you get both? And I'm actually very curious as why you got the enrolled agent as well, because I think there are, the alphabet soup is out there, right? There are so many different designations out there that you can choose from to, just become more of an expert in your area of focus. Why did you choose those two?
Yeah, so I'm really happy I chose the enrolled agent. And for those unfamiliar, it's essentially a designation above and beyond the CFP that enables you to represent clients before the IRS. So it's actually a designation through the Internal Revenue Service. And there's 3 exams, 3 parts. Part 1 is individual, part 2 is business, and part 3 is like regulation and compliance. And it's 100 questions each exam. So it's surely a commitment of time, 3 to 6 months, depending on your pace and study schedule to get that designation. So it certainly requires a lot of effort to get it, but I'm very happy I did. So coming into my company, my firm already prepared taxes and they wanted me to take on a larger role within that space. And internally, I always had a desire and love for taxes. Quirky as it sounds, that's something that interested me over some of the other domains of financial planning. And my boss at the time had the enrolled agent, and he talked it up. So I took the time to get that designation. And even though it was definitely difficult during the periods of studying and having to go through some of the challenging parts of it, such as the business part 2, it was very rewarding as far as the outputs that came out of it. And it has led me to become a better advisor from a tax end, and being able to actually tell clients, hey, we can legally give tax advice as an enrolled agent. And in addition to that, we kind of use that designation to prepare tax returns for our clients. So as an enrolled agent, I not only can give the tax advice and tax planning, but I can also do the tax preparation. And then I've also felt some value, and I wrote in an article about this as well, is to me, the enrolled agent sets itself up apart from others in the ability to advocate on the client's behalf. So when the client gets a notice from the IRS or a state franchise tax board, it's not maybe it'd be difficult for them to get in touch with the IRS. Instead of asking them to wait hours and hours on the phone to get in touch with the IRS, I can tell that client, hey, I can use my practitioner priority line and call the IRS and figure this thing out with you. Or more importantly, if they get a notice from the IRS that we may disagree with, we can essentially put up an argument and fight back on what the IRS claim is. And I've done that a few times in my career with clients where the IRS said they owe one thing, and then we've done the analysis and we come up with a different result, and we submit the documentation back with our supporting reasons and evidence, and we've been able to turn bills into refunds. So I feel that adds an additional layer of value to the relationship and makes clients more sticky, saying that whenever you get a notice from the IRS, whenever anything happens, just let me know. I'll be there for you. I'm going to go out to bat for you. I'm going to make sure that we're going to get this thing handled.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool because you had a direct use case with the EA where you already do tax returns with clients. So now you can apply it with that and then take it a step further. And when there's IRS issues, you can be there for the client, and that just strengthens that relationship even further. But I think for others, not every firm does tax returns. So some may say, why would I get the EA? We don't really do taxes. Maybe we do tax planning, but that might be overkill. I think it goes to something you said earlier, is like you became the tech guy, the marketing guy. You made yourself irreplaceable because you handle those things. So if your firm doesn't have the tax guy, and it could be the insurance guy, the whatever person specialty that your firm is lacking, become that person, and you'll just increase your value to the firm by that much. Now, I wanted to pivot there, Blake. We've always been saying this: careers just don't go up and to the right. There's always some, hurdles or obstacles to get through. So, can you talk through maybe some adversity that you've had to experience and make it through during your journey so far?
Yeah, definitely a lot of failures along the way. The first one I'd cite is failing the CFP exam the first time I took it. I mistakenly tried to enroll and study for the CFP exam at the same time I was taking my finals for college, my senior year of college. And I tried to put too much on my plate, and I ended up not dedicating enough attention to that monster of an exam, and I failed it the first time. So that was really uncomfortable and difficult to work through, knowing that I spent 3 months studying for an exam and I just failed. And I'm going to have to spend another 3 to 4 months studying for it again. And there's no guarantee that I'm going to pass it again. So that was a big low point for me on the journey, just having that doubt at the time. Can I do this? Can I pass this again? Can I get the gold standard like some of my peers and show up as a certified financial planner? And luckily, I was able to commit myself and changed some of my habits and study techniques, where I actually incorporated some more balance and took some time to exercise and take a break, because I was working full time during the time I was studying for the CFP. And initially, when I took it originally, I didn't take any time. I just went straight from the 9 to 5 to studying after that. But the second go around, I really took some time to balance and get my mindset right, and came in confident that I was going to crush it, and felt that I did. So that was certainly a low point. And then some other ones, just they relate to client circumstances, where sometimes you feel like you are doing a good job, but you're going to get pushback from clients, and maybe you could have handled something a little bit differently. I've definitely felt in my career that maybe this meeting could have gone a little bit better, or the client was a little upset, or didn't meet the expectations that they had coming in, and that weighs on me, especially if it's a mistake that I know that I've done. I think about that a lot when I go to bed, when I sleep, and the next day, even like the whole weekend, because I like to take my job very seriously. So that's a super low, very low point in my career, making those mistakes and just trying to tell myself it's going to be okay. You're going to respond to this and make the wrong right. And I think that's what defines a person. It's not about the mistake that they make, but it's how they recover from the mistake. So even though it's very tough and difficult during that time when you do make that critical mistake, it's important to mentally tell yourself, hey, you're going to get through this. Take a breather, relax, think about the positives, and live life with that glass half full mentality.
Yeah, totally. It goes back to the reps. And when you say you need a lot of reps for this career, it includes the bad ones. Yeah, you got to make those mistakes and then learn from them to really progress.
I think you said a couple of things, Blake, I can relate to. One, that CFP is a monster. I took it 3 times. I failed it the first 2 times. And I think how you said you didn't dedicate or even have like the right mind frame. I think for me, I was working full time and I was coming home and studying after work. And then when I took it and passed it, I realized I actually woke up earlier and started studying full time, like first thing in the morning, so I could be refreshed. So I can definitely understand, like, it's not just, going through the motions. It's really an exam. You have to be intentional how you spend your time. And I can definitely relate when you say, like, hey, I make mistakes and I think about it through the weekend. I'm very similar. I'm very hard on myself. I'll go to bed thinking like, oh, why did I do that? But when you say it's not about the mistake, but how do you pivot? How do you improve? And I think that's something that that we all can relate to. And I think that's something I learned from you and Mike, just from our interactions in general, on the FPA NexGen national committee. To pivot into that, Blake, what I would like to ask you is, one, how long is your term? as president? And what is life after FPA NexGen leadership look like for you?
Yeah, good question. So my term lasts through 2025. So this year, like I said, fortunate enough to serve as the chair. And then next year, I will be essentially staying on to oversee and contribute as much as I can. And then beyond in 2026 and beyond, that's a good question. My fiance always jokes that I spend more time on NexGen than I do with her after hours. So she definitely wants me to take a break from the volunteer work. So perhaps I might take a break after my involvement in FPA NexGen leadership and focus more on trying to really put myself in a position to be a premier lead advisor and bring in business and continuing to educate myself and make sure I'm sharp from that standpoint. But I'm not closing the door from volunteer work altogether. I could see myself at some point getting involved in the future, but I am getting married next year, so I think I probably should tone it down and try to be more intentional with my after hours work instead of solely dedicating to NexGen.
Okay. So one question we like to ask, and one question we like to ask is, Blake, what is one superpower that you bring to work?
Yeah, it's a good question. For me, I feel like I have a lot of energy and charisma in the way that I present myself with clients and just showing up to my job in general. I just love what I do, and I feel like I'm in a perfect position for where I wanted to be down the road. Obviously, I didn't know that I was going to be a financial planner. Kind of dating back to my story, I just thought I was going to get into business in some capacity, but I didn't know I'd be lucky enough to meet with clients every day and help them accomplish their financial goals and have fruitful conversations with them and really make positive impacts in their life. So I get a lot of drive and energy just from client interactions and honestly presenting strategies and coming up with ideas to help improve their lives. I just had a meeting the other day and my coworkers were like, all right, settle down, because I was just so fired up after the meeting on how it went and the possibilities for our company. So I really love what I do, and I can never see myself not wanting to at least serve clients in some capacity, because that really helps me find a balance between some of the like minutia, office type work, and then the people interaction. I think that's a big priority for me, is to always, have those client conversations. So essentially that's what fuels me.
Yeah, it sounds like you're very passionate about the profession, helping clients out, and honestly helping other financial planners out just through your work and actions of being the FPA NexGen president. Next, quick question for you is, tell us about your first client. How did you get them?
Yeah, so this was a few years ago, and my first client actually was a child of another client we have. So she was in her late 20s at the time I started working with her. So I didn't necessarily have to hunt to get my first client, but it really shaped the way that I wanted to serve clients in the future. I say it was my first client because it was the first time I got to personally lead conversations and personally go through the financial planning process with her. And it propelled me to create my own deliverables and action plan and how I wanted to go through the meetings and deliver advice and guidance and get feedback. So I think it was a very transformational experience as far as giving me the confidence to serve future clients, not necessarily a captivating story on how I got the client. But if it wasn't for that first client, then I don't know if I, would have been able to, serve some others that I did today, because I really needed that starting one just to reassure myself that, hey, I can do this, and this person that I'm serving sees value in the work that we're doing together. Unfortunately, fortunately for her, she did move out of the country, and she's in a really good spot, and we no longer are working together. But she sent me a long email before we parted ways, and saying thank you so much for all the work that we did together. You know, you've changed my life a lot, and just thank you for everything. And that was just really reassuring that, hey, I felt that I did a good job for this person, and they saw it. So I think that's just a huge win and something that I'll never forget.
Yeah, sounds like it was a big confidence booster for you, just getting that first client, starting for the planning process from A to Z, and really determining how you want to do the financial planning process.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, as we wrap up here, what is the number one takeaway you want listeners to get from your episode?
Yeah, I think, and this just stems a little bit from my own experience, is don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And all of us on this call have found a lot of value in getting involved in FPA and other opportunities to help advance ourselves in our career. But it doesn't just have to be, doesn't have to be FPA, or doesn't have to be something similar to that. I think it's just important to put yourself in a position outside of your internal work environment and get perspectives and guidance and bounce ideas from other individuals. They could be advisors, they could be people outside of the industry, but it's just really important to put yourself out there. Um, there's a lot of different channels to do that. So wouldn't just limit yourself to one, but in order to really, hone yourself and make sure you're doing the right things, you gotta get some guidance from others. So I think from my career thus far, and it hasn't been a super long one, I'm really happy that I took the time to put myself out there, say yes to opportunities, and make sure I'm doing those extracurriculars above and beyond what I'm doing during my full-time job. And I'd recommend everyone do the same if you're willing to.
All right, that wraps this up. This has been the Blueprint, an FPA NexGen podcast. Another great episode. This has been Blake, Deshaun, and Mike. We'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks.